Tech Sideline is presented by First Bank and Trust Company, the bank that puts you first. They can meet your banking and financing needs for personal, agricultural, business, commercial, mortgages, and so much more. Visit firstbank.com to learn more.
What's up, Hokie Nation, and welcome into episode 495 of the Tech Sideline podcast. James Franklin's first fall camp in Blacksburg is underway. These guys all got to take it in yesterday here in the NRV. All that and much more coming up in episode 495 of the Tech Sideline podcast, which starts right now. And we record on Friday, August 7th, 2026 from the Tech Solutions Studio in the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center. Remember to like, subscribe, and refer the show to a friend. I'm your host, Carter Hill. To my left is our lead analyst, columnist Chris Coleman. Across the way is our managing editor, Mr. David Cunningham. To his right is our senior staff writer, Andy Bitter. And Nick Brown, our director of media, is producing behind the scenes. Guys, before we really get underway, I cannot believe the fall camp is here in Blacksburg. You guys got to see practice yesterday. What were some immediate things that stood out in the first 20, 25 minutes that you got to see James Franklin and the Hokies go to work?
Well, I think very similar to the spring as far as the setup. They're not in pads right now, so there's not a tremendous amount of football stuff to see. And even if they were, it's not like we get to see 11 on 11 very often. But kind of the same stuff as the spring, I think. The quarterback's arm talent, again, stands out to me. All of them. I was watching them throw deep post routes to the wide receivers with no defensive backs on the field, and these are like 40-yard throws, maybe more than that. And I think they're the first 6 throws I watched, they just hit each receiver dead in stride. They didn't have to slow up. So I just think the overall arm talent on this team from top to bottom has improved. I think it's the most arm talent on a Tech team since the 2019 roster when they had Hendon Hooker, Ryan Willis, and Quincy Patterson, and all those guys could sling it.
Yeah, I think the roster looks more mature. They look bigger. You look at the number of 300-pound guys on the list. That's up from the last couple of years. So I think that's a testament to the recruiting that they did to bring in some bigger guys like that, but then the work they did in the offseason too. And so, that's one thing that's noticeable about there. But like Chris said, it's second practice, so it's tough to draw too many conclusions. James Franklin, it's just sort of a trope for head coaches now. They weren't really pleased with the way the first practice went. But they rebounded very well in the second practice and showed a lot more energy. I think you'll see that happens almost every camp at every school across the country. We joked about this at Auburn. Coaches are allowed to be displeased with one practice and possibly 2 in a row, but never the third. The third one is always a rebound practice on this, and I think it is even a shorter time frame now where they have a bad practice, but then they rebound well in the next one. So it's kind of funny how that works out, that they always seem to respond and have a good practice when the coach needs them to.
I thought in the little bit of practice we saw yesterday that the offense looked much better than the defense.
I thought it was the case in the spring too.
Yeah, I thought. Chris talked about the quarterbacks. We saw Luke Reynolds, Tyseer Denmark, Luke Stewie. A lot of receivers in the one-on-one period with the defensive backs just go out and make plays. 1 or 2 really good plays from some defenders, but even Davion Brown, the true freshman who enrolled over the summer, had
Fat Rat, right?
Had a really good play. So it'd be interesting to see once we get another week or 2 down the road if the defenses continue to come along, because there's a lot of young freshman DBs too. But some of those guys were the ones that looked pretty good, like Tyson Harley, Tyrell Grant at safety, Amari Polidor, who we talked about, was here in the spring.
They both were here in the spring, and I thought they both looked good in the spring, too. I think they're very advanced for their age. I think a guy like Polidor would play as a true freshman if Tech didn't bring in 3 transfers.
Yeah, he's 6th or 7th in the pecking order probably right now. Maybe that's low.
Yeah. But both those guys got great jobs from Franklin in the one-on-one period we saw yesterday. So.
But they don't need to redshirt anymore.
Right, yeah.
This has completely ruined your whole thing here.
Well, it depends on how you look at it.
Always be developing.
Developing, yeah. That's what it is. Because in reality, it's not going to change too much. Are you going to take? You're not going to take a senior corner off the field just to play a freshman, just for the sake of it. Especially when you've got Tech's schedule this year, and most of the games are either winnable or losable. There's a lot of 50-50 games in there. So you still have to earn playing time whether you're technically redshirting.
I know, but it's the brand.
I know.
The brand is ruined at this point.
Yeah, I've got my...
Thanks a lot, NCAA.
I've got my license plate at home that used to hang up there that said red shirt. And so I guess I have to retire that one now.
Well, you got to keep it as a souvenir, right?
Yeah. So Tech still lists red shirts on their roster, though. So if they've redshirted in the past. So we've still got that to hang on to.
I think the tough part is everyone's trying to figure out how they want to label classes.
Yeah.
Now, you should just go freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, fifth.
Yeah.
You should just make it easy and do that.
Well, some schools, and it's a conundrum for Tech. A lot of schools are going first year, second year, third year, but that is such a UVA thing that I think Virginia Tech will have a very hard time going to that.
Exactly.
So I think you'll see them just do freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, fifth.
Yeah. I think so too. So like,
but there's not a universal thing across the board.
Exactly. So like Jordan Bass is a fourth year senior this year, I believe, but he should have like another year. Or did he redshirt at Pitt? I don't remember. But Tech has a few guys who should be eligible as seniors next year who were listed as seniors.
I think he did not redshirt at Pitt because that was the talk last year when he switched positions.
Right. That's right. He was going to redshirt last year.
Yeah. And then, the eligibility thing, some guys like Aiden Green has an extra year, and then some guys like Marcellus Hawkins, who redshirted, was hoping to get a medical redshirt because he's been banged up a little bit when he was playing at the D2 level. He could have potentially played another year, and he didn't have that anymore because of the new rule. So a lot to keep track of.
You mentioned Luke Reynolds a little bit, and I know Andy wrote about this and tweeted something yesterday. Seemed like he made quite a bit of a catch and maybe had something to say to Tyson Flowers. Can you kind of talk about that little sequence of practice yesterday?
Yeah, he had a nice little out and up route along the sideline, and whoever threw, I don't know who threw the pass. I couldn't see that in the video that I took, but it was a nice pass right there, tight on the sideline. He caught it. Not only got 1 foot, he got 2 feet in as he's going to the ground, and he got up and he's like, "And it's 2 effing feet, and it's 2." He was like shouting it to everybody. I think we saw some of that in the spring as well, in one-on-ones and goal line situations where he'd make a play and then he'd talk about it to everybody afterwards. He seems like a very, shall we say, confident individual on the field. And, I asked Franklin about it afterwards. He's like, we like it to a point. It's obviously against Virginia Tech, so you don't want to like go overboard with your teammates like that. But he's like, from an energy standpoint, that really brought it. And that was something he'd like to see.
Yeah, and Reynolds, to get, I see it's on our list, so let's get
go for it. Right there,
more about Reynolds. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, and some had him as a number 1 tight end recruit in the country. But you got to remember, I believe he was mostly a quarterback in high school, similar to like Pierce Peterson, who Virginia Tech signed this past year. So it took him a little while to get used to the tight end position. And he did not redshirt at Penn State. They threw him out there at tight end on the field his first year, despite the fact that he had never really played it before. So he's always like a little bit behind in his development because of the lack of experience at the position. And I think Penn State fans were a little bit disappointed in him.
I've been told by Penn State fans that he's awful.
It
wasn't worth taking.
Right. Come on. But Virginia Tech is getting him right when he's about to start hitting his peak. Because again, he didn't have a background much as a tight end, and that can take a while. That was always why I was an advocate for redshirting, especially when guys were changing positions in college. You got to give them some time to get used to playing a new position. But like I said, I think Reynolds is about to take off, and I think Virginia Tech is getting him at the exact moment in his career where his production is really going to shoot up.
What kind of numbers do you think he can put up? Because I feel like every now and then we hear like, tight end usage is really going to go up.
Right.
But this time I actually believe it.
Yeah, I don't think he'll catch 90-some passes like Tyler Warren. Maybe next year he will. But I wouldn't shock me if he caught 50 passes this year for Virginia Tech.
Because like they had Dalton Keene and James Mitchell, and those are very good tight ends. But I don't think they ever had a pass catching season that was just outstanding. Bucky Hodges, you have to go back to him, but
he wasn't even a tight end.
Most of his seasons weren't as a tight end. Yeah. That first one, 2014, I think legitimately was. And he had 45 catches for 526, 7 touchdowns. And then he sort of became more of a slot receiver and definitely was only a receiver when Fuente got here. They just made him that permanently. So that's maybe the kind of numbers that I think you can hope for with Reynolds. If he hits those kind of numbers, I think that's an all ACC count.
I think it's telling that the very first portion of practice we got to see yesterday was the offense practicing tight end screens.
That's a good point. How much do you think the tight end room is going to be used as a whole? Like, I mean, you mentioned just a minute ago a guy like, somebody that you're bringing in like a why am I blanking on his name all of a sudden? Tight end from Penn State that just transferred in. Luke Reynolds, thank you. So you're going to use a guy like Luke Reynolds, but also on top of that, you're going to have Benji Gosnell still here. And then on top of that, you also have Jarius Harrison still here. So how much is the tight end room going to be used as a whole?
A lot. I mean, I think more times than not, you'll see 2 tight ends on the field for Virginia Tech. I think that'll be their primary formation next year, 2 tight ends.
The offensive coordinator is the tight ends coach. You think he might have some insight and some preference for playing tight ends? Yeah, I think they're going to use him quite a bit. I'd like to see 2 or 3 occasionally. If they could get to like the mythical 4 tight end formation sometime, I think fans might lose their mind. But I think 2 will be pretty common, especially considering you can split Reynolds out wide and he can be a receiver-like player. And that allows you to, do different formations without subbing. And then all of a sudden you catch the defense and, they can't sub as well. And then they're just kind of stuck with their personnel on the field. I think that's an advantage that the Hokies can take advantage of.
I think when you look at the tight ends, I mean, you got 4 really good ones. You forgot Harrison St. Germain too. And,
yeah, 4 of them.
It's funny. We were talking in the office the other day. He was a guy who was recruited by Fuente.
There's 3 guys left on the roster that were recruited by Fuente.
Fuente recruits.
Well, 2 will be healthy now.
Right.
Johnny Garrett got hurt, so we'll talk about that eventually.
But you've got 2 guys who have been here a long time in St. Germain and Gosnell, and even Hairston, who was a former walk-on. And they've all got different skill sets. And then you've kind of got this guy in Luke Reynolds, who's this all-around guy. Matt Henderson is a young guy who in a normal year might be able to redshirt, but probably won't need to. But I look at like Luke Reynolds as kind of the all-around guy. And I thought Franklin's quote about him was really interesting, talking about how, first of all, it was a no-brainer to get him here, but he's a true tight end where he's going to stick his nose in there and knock you in at 252 pounds. It's like, are we going to play nickel and try to match up with them, and then he's going to put his nose in the C gap and mash you, or are you going to put a linebacker in there and then he's going to be a matchup problem? And I think when you've got him, when you've got Benji Gosnell, when you've got St. Germain, Hairston, like they've just got a number of guys who they could. I mean, we saw Gosnell and Reynolds with the ones yesterday. Like they had 2 tight ends. That was their base formation we saw. So like, if they frequent 2-3 tight end sets, that's a lot of different matchup problems for defenses, especially with a guy like Reynolds.
You mentioned the quarterback too. Everybody wants to talk about the quarterback position, and I think it was Marcellus Hawkins that sat down with us at ACC Kickoff across the way, and it's like, yeah, man, our quarterback Ethan Grunkemeyer. So like, I think it's everybody knows it's probably going to be Ethan Grunkemeyer, but you talked to James Franklin yesterday. They're not going to name a starter anytime soon, it seems like, and probably will not until going into game week, which is a question that you asked, Andy. But anything to read into that whatsoever? Is Ethan Grunkemeyer probably going to be the guy to go forward as the starting quarterback for Virginia Tech?
Franklin sort of talks out of both sides of his mouth on this, and I don't blame him. I'm just saying he does, because he says, yeah, we want to keep it an open competition as long as possible. We want everybody dialed in. But then other times he's like, if somebody's the starter, the players know if he's the starter. Right. So the players know that Ethan Grunkemeyer is going to be the starter. And I would assume even the other quarterbacks know that too. But yes, there is a competition. By keeping it open, you do give guys a chance and say, hey, if you really go out there and dominate the next couple weeks, that really gives us something to think about. Now, if that's likely to happen or not, I wouldn't think so, because it's not like Grunkmeyer's not still developing himself. He's only a redshirt sophomore. He's going to get better, just like those other guys who are young players. He's just slightly less young. I think the bigger question mark is who's going to be the number 2 quarterback, because
Baker and Hune. I think that's the true competition.
I agree. I've heard Hune had a good offseason, and if you go back to the spring, his very first scrimmage in college, when he was supposed to still be in high school, he went 18 of 20. I think this is a high-level passer. And I know everybody wants to talk about Peter Bork because he's a top 100 recruit who will enroll next year, but I'm saying do not sleep on Hune and his future, because I think he's got a lot of talent.
Well, you wrote the other day that he's in a weird position because he might be one of the most talented young players on this team, but he's at the one position on the field where you can really only play one guy at one time. And he's behind a young quarterback already in Grunkemeyer, and he's got a top 100 guy coming in behind him in Bork. Like, it's Troy Hune could end up having a really impactful career when? Like, it might take time.
I think it could be an all ACC player for Virginia Tech, or I also think like he could transfer out after a couple of years because he's just stuck between two good young players, right? That's just how it is when you recruit quarterbacks these days. But it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, this is sort of a champagne problem here that you have. Oh, how are we going to play all these top 100 guys that you're recruiting here? I wrote it in my 5 questions on Monday or earlier this week, whatever day it was. Wednesday, I think is the day it ran.
Yeah.
When was the last time the starting quarterback in the opener truly surprised you? And when was the last time it wasn't just who was leading in the spring? I mean, there was the COVID year, but that was weird, and there were extenuating circumstances. Michael Brewer did not become the starter until August, but he didn't get here till the summer.
Right. And I think everybody knew.
And everybody knew it. Yeah. It's like, oh, Brendan Motley finishes the spring #1, but they got this other guy coming in that they brought him in for a reason.
Last time I was surprised.
Was there ever a Tyrod Glennon situation where you were surprised at the direction? It was always tied to whether they were trying to
as the starter at the beginning of the season. No, because Glennon was the starter at the beginning of the season for both of those years.
Right. It was always tied to like, is Tyrod going to redshirt this year and working around that? So I don't think there's ever really been a surprise. And even in my time covering other schools, it's never been a surprise. And it's to Franklin's words, like they know. They just haven't come out and said it. So it'll be interesting when they actually do declare it. Franklin said they won't go up till game day against VMI. Keep VMI guessing who the starting quarterback is going to be. They'll announce it at some point, but it's going to be not that much of a surprise when they do.
Ideally, do you play 3 quarterbacks against VMI?
I think they will. Well,
VMI. I would hope so.
If the team takes care of business as they should,
right.
then you'd like to
start
start
50-point favorites. If they don't,
start with 2. Should start with 1 and then 2.
Yeah,
if you can get to 3, that'd be a great problem.
I think if you can play Grunkemeyer for the first half, and then if you're up by 35 or 40 points, which you should be, then you could play your number 2 guy for the third quarter and your number 3 guy for the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Interesting. And you read about the wide receivers a little bit too. And, Keyshawn Brown and a guy like Aiden Green are obviously going to be the 2 headliners. And you look at what Brown did at Duke, and Aiden Green's done in his 3 years at Virginia Tech with maybe a run-first quarterback at the helm too. But you guys were talking about him before the podcast. Is Luke Stewie going to play a role for Virginia Tech this season? It seems like you guys both talked about him both on the boards and Andy in his story yesterday as well.
I think so. It was interesting when we were listening to Isaiah Brown Murray be interviewed yesterday, and he was asked about the wide receivers, and he mentioned the starters and the proven players. So he mentioned Brown and Green, and he mentioned Heath and Jackson, who transferred in from Louisiana Tech. So he mentioned the guys that have either started before and we know we're going to start, or that have produced in college in the past. But then the first true backup name out of his mouth was Luke Stewie. And then it
caught a deep ball for a touchdown.
He did. And then it was Tyseer Denmark. So those were the first 2 real backup names that he mentioned, which is interesting because everybody wants to know how the former 4-star wide receivers are doing. But just from the way Brown Murray talks, these 3-star guys that nobody really thinks about might be ahead of those guys right now, despite the fact that they're similar age or even younger. And I think if you go back and look at Stewie, he didn't earn his offer from Virginia Tech by having a big offer list or anything like that. He came to camp over the summer and whipped up on all the defensive backs that were in camp, and also had a great performance as a safety because he was a tremendous player on both sides of the ball in high school. And I think the thought at first when he came to Virginia Tech was that he was going to play safety, but I think the further they looked at it, they thought wide receiver is going to be his best position, and I agree with him.
Yeah, I think the thing that stood out, what IBM said about both of those guys, it seems like good route runners, solid hands. Like, not like, oh, they wow you, they beat you deep with their speed or their size or anything like that. Like, they sort of, technicians that beat you in that way. And for IBM, I think that makes sense because he works a lot in the slot. So route running and quickness and finding spots in the zone, I think are going to be difficult things for a nickelback to handle. So that sort of scouting report on those guys makes sense. But Stewie looked physically like he belonged there too after a redshirt year like that. And I haven't watched Denmark too much, but his name seems to pop up quite a bit. So he's probably going to be one that I take a bit more of a gander on that next time around.
Denmark had a big play that he burned a DB yesterday too. But Chris and I both came away from it, and then I talked to Andy about it, and Andy said the same thing. Came away like, man, like Stewie's going to play this year.
Yeah.
And Chris is like, yup. And Andy said, yeah. And it's like, I think the consensus is that he's impressed, and obviously helps that his dad played here at Virginia Tech, the familiarity, but his recruitment was kind of late as far as like he was I don't want to say a late offer, but like his recruitment was kind of off to the side. Like he's in Ohio, like he came here and camped, and it was a much longer process than maybe some of the other ones are. But they recruited him as an athlete, and then hey, wide receiver.
Yeah,
and
his dad was a wide receiver at Tech.
Yeah, the opportunities there too. I think that's a big thing. Is that you got Aiden Green and Quayshawn Brown, and then who?
Right.
I mean, I think Jackson was running with the ones the other day, wasn't he? Takai Heath has had a little bit of production. He's also had a lot of injury history. Chance Wiggins, Keelan Adams, they've been injured. I mean, I put a picture of my 5 questions thing, and it was from 2024 because neither of them played last year. So I just think a lot of question marks at that position beyond those top 2, and that's opportunities abound for people to step up if they're producing a practice.
So 2 other notes. He also mentioned AJ Brand before he mentioned all those other guys, all the other former 4-star guys. And AJ Brand is a guy they converted from quarterback in the spring. I think Denmark. He specifically talked about how Denmark is good at the top of his route, which means when he's making his break. He's really good at route running at the top of his break. So like when you're running like an out pattern or you're running like a square in pattern, you don't want to what we used to call banana the routes. Like you want to cut in like a 90-degree angle to cut down. Because if you run it like a banana route, you give that defensive back room to cut inside of you and make the interception on those passes where you need the right angle and the right timing and things like that. So I think he's really strong in that area of his game, which will make him a favorite of the quarterbacks because, you're throwing to a spot and you have to trust that receiver to be in that spot. But if he's not ending his routes correctly and breaking them off properly, you're kind of hesitating. Is that guy going to be there? Is he going to run the right route? And Denmark seems to be a reliable guy from that standpoint.
I mean, he's 5'10", 183, right behind Brown in terms of the slot. And I thought Heath was pretty good in the spring, but he's also a guy that has been a little bit up and down in his time at Virginia
Injuries
Tech.
and drops a lot.
I think with Stewie, I mean, I think it's hard to forget that he's 6'2". I mean, he's this tied for the second tallest wide receiver in the room, only behind Wiggins, who's 6'3". And Wiggins made a really good catch yesterday in practice. But yeah, I think that Carter, we talk about all these questions across the board. You can talk about defensive line and whatnot. I think the wide receivers after like Brown and Green, it's kind of just like it's anybody's game. And yesterday, our first practice was really good glimpse into like, okay, here are 1 or 2 or 3 different guys that maybe we didn't suspect that are kind of coming along, and come September 5th, they might be playing a role in some shape or form.
Yeah, and it's important to remember though that Adams and Wiggins are coming off seasons where they were injured the entire year due to injury. So, and they were not available this past spring either, I don't believe. So might take them a little while to get back in the groove, and I think they're still in the race. And I think Shamarius Peterkin, I think he's so raw. Like if it wasn't for those injuries last year to those older players, and I don't think he would have been out there. He was a great athlete, but extremely raw. He would have been a guy who would have redshirted in a normal season, or did he redshirt? I don't remember how many games he played. But anyway, he saved the scoring streak.
did,
If he doesn't play, the scoring streak's over.
Right, exactly. So those guys are still in it. They're just young players who are either very, very raw or coming off injury. But, I think we can look at a guy like Stewie and say, well, he grew up in the household of a former college wide receiver who was a good technical player for Virginia Tech back in the 1990s. And I think he got, was really well coached in high school as well. He's just one of those guys who I think is a natural football player. And I'm always about recruiting natural football players because I think they can get on the field faster.
In hindsight, it doesn't matter whether Peter can redshirt it or not because
Right.
he's 5 to play 5.
That's true.
So how many receivers do you think they play then, off the top of your head? You just named probably, 8 or 9 names there. So how many of those realistically get on the field consistently?
5.
Here's what Fontelmein's going to want. We'd like to get to 6 or 7. Right now, we have 2 or 3 that we trust. I bet you that becomes 4 or 5 by the time season starts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've heard football coaches talk for 25 years.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Holman Wiggins wanted 8.
6 to 7. 6 to 7 is always the magic number, and it's never really 6 to 7. I mean, you probably play 3 or 4 mostly, maybe a 5th one every now and then. But what teams do you know that go 7 deep at wide receiver and are actually throwing all those guys the ball?
It's very rare.
And the tough part is when you incorporate the tight ends.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Oh,
when
point,
you've got an extra tight end on the field.
What you want is the ability to go that deep
Right.
and not feel like you're really struggling. Whereas there were years where it was, Trey Turner and Tavian Robinson, and then what? It was he had to put James Mitchell out there in the slot just to get a 3 wideout set. That's what you want to avoid because then you have to play those guys every snap of the game, and by the end they're just dragging and they can't get open. They don't have that extra gear, so you want to have the ability to go deep, and that doesn't mean that they will necessarily play 7 guys equal amount of snaps or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about the tight ends. You have 4 ones you trust. It was Green and Brown, the number 1 wide receivers yesterday. If you feel a little bit good about Jackson, even though he's coming off of a spring injury, but if it can get even where you've got maybe 5 or 6 guys you feel like you can play behind those first 2 or 3, and you feel good about 4 tight ends, it kind of lets you do a little bit more. And that goes in hand with the running backs, right? Marcellus Hawkins is finally completely healthy now too. Jeffrey Overton, you feel really good about him. You can feel confident about Bill Davis. Like, you've got a mixture of maybe 10 to 12 different skill players at those 3 spots you really like, and you can kind of mix and match combinations and personnel.
Yeah, and I think Jackson, he played a lot at Louisiana Tech. Didn't catch a ton of passes, but if you go back and look, they had a quarterback carousel every year. They're playing like 2 or 3 quarterbacks every year and never had a strong passing game. So he's a better player, in my opinion, than his numbers indicate from Louisiana Tech. Just like you can't really judge Aiden Green on numbers from last year when Tech had quarterback issues and couldn't protect the quarterback. So like Aiden Green's a better football player than his career numbers to this point would indicate, in my opinion. And you'll probably start to see that this year with, better natural passers in the program.
By the way, not to cheat a little bit, because I know you guys, I don't think you guys saw this. Brown's probably the punt returner. Who's the kick returner? I know special teams you guys didn't see yesterday, but just curious to get
Could be like
everybody's thoughts.
Thomas Williams.
It could be. Overton's a guy I would look at back there. Generally, your kickoff returner is usually a running back.
What, like Messiah Mickens?
You could give him a shot back there. Thomas Williams, was a cornerback, but he's a cornerback who played running back in high school, so he's got running back skills.
Yeah, and
with the ball.
You want somebody that can look
years.
at, see a hole and hit it.
Exactly.
That's what you want.
Exactly. Whereas punt return is more wide receiver cornerback. You want the side to side and then explosiveness. So
that's why Bayshaw Tootin, David Wilson,
exactly,
kickoff the returners. Historic guys on kick return have been really good running backs.
Yep.
All right, and with that, let's step aside and hear from the Hokie Way here on Tech Sideline.
This episode of the Tech Sideline podcast is brought to you by the Hokie Way. The Hokie Way supports student athletes in leveraging their name, image, and likeness to amplify the mission of charitable organizations as a way to give back to the community. Your contributions to the Hokie Way support Hokies NIL and are tax deductible. Visit thehokieway.org to learn more.
And welcome back to episode 495 of the Tech Sideline podcast. The question that everybody wants to know, injury front. Seems like Virginia Tech's actually in a pretty good spot. Jacquez White obviously had the injury scare in the spring game. There was some concern over the summer, but seems like he is good to go. JoJo Krim is back out there as well, but two guys you're probably worried about is Emmett Laws is still not out there, and then Johnny Garrett, who we talked about off the air, is somebody that is going to be out with a long-term injury. So any updates there and where the Hokies are at from a health standpoint?
Yeah, Laws was present but not practicing.
He was there, not dressed out.
Right, and we didn't
not
see
necessarily moving smoothly.
Yeah,
you could tell he's laboring a little bit, just moving around.
Yeah, Pry didn't sound confident about that one when I asked him about it back in June or May or whenever it was we talked to him.
The fact that he's out there maybe tells me there's a chance this season, but it didn't. Yeah, I'm not a doctor, and I certainly can't tell by looking at somebody, but if you're not dressed on the first day of practice, I can't imagine you're ready by the start of the season.
You're right. Like if you're not one of those guys wearing a green jersey to the side, like doing stuff with the strength staff, then
over
you're
at
not
Muscle Beach there doing push-ups and stuff.
Exactly. So, but we knew that coming into the season. Garrett being out with a long-term injury is new. We didn't know that until yesterday, so I'm not sure when that injury occurred, whether it was the first day of practice or at some point over the summer. So Franklin's definition of long-term is basically like, well, when we don't know how long he's going to be out, we're just going to call it long-term.
Yeah, it's not code for out for the season.
Right.
But a reasonable amount of time.
To the point that it's far enough down the line that they don't have a return date. And maybe don't count on him in the
They're not
future.
making plans right now for Johnny Garrett. If he comes back and he can get back into football shape and contribute, great. But right now they're going forward as, they're not going to have him anytime soon. So that's unfortunate. But at the same time, when you're talking about 120 players on the team and only 2 of them are out at the beginning of fall practice, that's a healthy football team overall.
Yeah, I think the Laws one, is more significant because
Agreed.
I think he's a starter, and I really question who they have as the other tackle next to Kamari on the inside. It's Elijah Fall, Hanchuk, Eric Mensah, Adarica. Like who's going to be the one to step up there? That's a position you need some depth because guys are going to get nicked up. I mean, you just get knocked around on the inside like that. Somebody falls on your knee from the side. Defensive tackles never get through the season healthy. You're going to need a full complement of them. And now there's a question mark, even the number 2 spot, I think, at that position. So that's a bigger deal. Garrett, they're more offensive linemen this year. They have, out-recruited him, I think, at tackle, where you have Justin Terry, you have Logan Howland now. Montavious Cunningham playing out there on the right-hand side. I think there are more options at tackle, and I think that's why you saw him slide inside a bit in the spring and play guard. But to lose a guy that had that kind of experience, I think he was a pretty well-respected guy on the team. I think the coaches liked him a lot, and that's tough, especially since I don't think he can get another year at this point. Now there's 5 for 5.
Yeah.
He's already redshirted. This would have been his 5th year.
He could get an injury. He could get a medical.
Well, I don't know.
I don't think they do
I don't know if they're going to do that anymore.
I don't know how it works with players who are the previous generation coming into this 5 for 5.
I don't think they know either.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
they'll
figure it out.
They'll figure it out after they get sued.
Yeah, so that's a tough break, and hopefully he comes back at some point this year. But I think they can manage on the line because I don't think he was going to be one of the starting tackles this year anyway.
Yeah, I mean they got Terry on the right, Cunningham, or Terry on the left, Cunningham on the right in first group, and then Howland and Lynch left, right tackle yesterday. I mean but Howland and Terry were 2 guys that we didn't get a chance to see in the spring because they were both banged up.
Yeah, Howland was out the whole spring, and Terry was out a lot. He came back. Yeah, he's dropped a lot of weight. He's dropped, I believe, 27 pounds, and just he was big, but he's dropped 27 pounds, but still looks like one of the biggest dudes out there. And remember, this was a guy who was in the 2 deep at Ohio State last year. Who got playing time for the Buckeyes. You know how talented you have to be in Ohio State's 2 deep. And he's a guy who can play guard or tackle. Right now he's at left tackle. Logan Howland is a guy who started at Oklahoma. Right now he's running with the 2s just because he wasn't here in the spring. Now if he gets back up into football shape and gets back into form, he could potentially start at offensive tackle. Terry could potentially play some guard. He's one of those swing guys. But wherever he plays, I think he's going to end up having a very productive career.
Here's guessing the offensive line unit we saw out there yesterday. does not stay consistent throughout August. They're going to mix and match. You're going to get some surprises. The starting line against VMI might not be the starting line the next week against ODU. I think there are more options there, and I think they will play more guys in the line than they have in the past because they can. Last year was like 5 and then pray that nobody gets hurt because everybody else was injured
and they all got hurt.
Right. I think the only guy who was all right, so the guys running with the ones yesterday were Justin Terry at left tackle, Lath Ganem at left guard, Al Tuner at center, Brody Meadows at right guard, Montavious Cunningham at right tackle. I think the only one of those 5 we can say that with 100% certainty will be a starter against VMI is Kyle Altuner.
Altuner.
No, I think it's likely that a couple of those others will as well. But for Cunningham, will it be at tackle or guard? Right.
Right. Once you establish a center as a redshirt freshman, he's probably starting
job.
the rest of the way. It's very tough to displace, unless they need him at like guard.
Exactly.
Or there's a huge need for it. Interestingly, you mentioned Meadows and Cunningham. Meadows missed all of last season.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's back up there with the first unit right now, or at least yesterday. Cunningham played in 4 games and got a medical. That he needed a medical to come back for another year, so obviously he got it. He hasn't really hit his stride, I think, since he came here. The first year is like, is he a guard? Is he a tackle? Last year he was injured. They seem to always be talking him up, and they like him at the right tackle spot right now. So we'll see. He hasn't quite been able to get a foothold with it since he's been here, but the way they talk about him, they seem to think he can.
I think so. I think he played for Georgia. It was Georgia State he played for, and he started at right tackle for them. And I think he's built more like a tackle. He's maybe not your 6'6" guy like you would normally see out there, but he's got long arms and his body looks more like a tackle than that of a guard. And I think when they tried him at guard that first year, I don't think that was really natural for him. And then obviously he was banged up last year. But I think right now I actually think he will be the starting right tackle to open the season. Like he would probably be my number 2 on the list behind Ganem, and I'm probably going out a little bit of a limb considering he hasn't played that much, but I do believe in his ability.
And the one thing on the second team kind of surprised me is Benjamin Azuka. Is that how you pronounce it? Azuka?
Just call him Benny. That's what Matt Moore calls him.
Benjamin Azuka, true freshman. I often see a true freshman in the 2 deep, and again, it's one day. So
he's never missed leg day,
and
buddy.
I don't recall seeing Troutman. Was he on one of the teams?
He split some time. He played center and guard.
Okay, so that's the guy before.
So sometimes he was second.
Again, I think they're going to move these guys around on which teams they're playing, which positions they're playing. But to see a guy like Azuka this early and physically, I think he's 312 pounds.
317, I think.
Okay.
And he was actually over 320 in the spring.
He's a big guy.
He's a large boy.
Once you get over 300, you're talking about 5 pounds is a very minimal amount. But he's physically ready to play as a freshman, I think. Whereas that sometimes you recruit these linemen and they're 250 pounds. You're like, they're going to add the size. This guy already has the size right away.
He was a state champion in Michigan, and he had a really entertaining play in wrestling too.
Yeah, it was a state champion, Brett.
Well, he was state champion in football.
Yeah,
double state.
Pretty sure he was a state champion wrestler.
He had a really entertaining highlight reel from the state championship game as a defensive tackle. I think he caught an interception and returned it for a touchdown. You don't see that very often from a defensive tackle, or it might have been a fumble. But anyway, it was a long run too. Like he had to run like 50 yards, and they couldn't bring him down.
What weight class? What do you have to be?
Super
heavyweight for?
Oh my god!
Like, can you imagine you're out
Can
there?
Can you imagine being like a normal
I'm 260,
heavyweight?
like I'm pretty big, and then this guy comes in, you're like, oh come on, I got to wrestle this guy.
Oh, good, David.
The thing, I think not that we didn't talk about it, but Matt Moore and Fonto Mines were the 2 assistant coaches that were kept, and I think. I don't know how much it meant as far as the wide receiver room. Like, because they brought in a handful of guys there as well, but they kept Adams, Wiggins, Stewie, Aiden Green. But on the offensive line, a group that seemed like under Brent Pry, they never really got going consistently, had its moments. But, like, I think retaining Matt Moore and being able to keep a guy like Kyle Altuner at center, where he's going to be the guy. And then you add Terry and Howland, potential impact guys from the portal. Terry, whom more coached at West Virginia. It seems like this could be the year that everything starts to come together up front, which is important because the last 2 years, I think everybody was kind of just waiting for the offensive line, and never really came together. And that's what happens when you have constant turnover with all these assistant coaches. It's like now you've got a little bit of consistency. You've upgraded the talent in that room. You've got not only players with experience that have been here, players with experience you brought in, but you've also got, like Azuka, talented freshmen. So I think it's the right mix is starting to form there, it seems. Whether it's this year or maybe the group is really another year away.
Probably still another year away, but should be improved. One of the issues with them last year, though, is I don't think Philip Montgomery really truly understood how to coach around an offensive line that struggled to block. Like, even if you go back to like 2023, like that line couldn't block. The first 4 games of the season, they got trounced.
When he was at Auburn, you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about Virginia Tech's line. Then they made the tweak to the offense where there was more misdirection and things like that, and just harder for linebackers to read their keys. And all of a sudden, Tech's offense started putting up big numbers. And it's not like the offensive line was dominating people. It's just they were getting defenders moving in the wrong direction. I'll never forget that.
There's some plays where they weren't even blocking something. Like Bob Schick down the field, like looking for somebody to block.
Yeah, there was that long run by drones against Syracuse where Schick gets 50 yards downfield and never touched anybody because the Syracuse defenders had been tricked into running to the wrong side of the field, right? I don't think Montgomery, who's basically run the whole offense his whole career, I don't think he was capable of running an offense like that last year. But like these poor guys, they just didn't get any help from their scheme or their play calling. And we don't know that Howell's going to be able to do that because he's never been an offensive coordinator before. But I have a pretty good feeling about it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting. Offensive line coaches are pretty honest with you when you talk to them. I remember Ron Crook a couple years ago was like, "You're ready for the season over." He's like, "Ready for the opener?" And he's like, "Could use some more time, to be quite honest with you." And last year we're talking to Matt Moore. And he's like, O-line is a 2-year rebuild. It's like, well, this is year 1. There's no guarantee that you're going to get a second year because the coach is on the hot seat here. So it wasn't a great sign going in. It'll be interesting when we talk to Matt Moore this year how he feels in the second year of this rebuild. And we talk about second year with a lot of these players, third year with a lot more of them, or even more when you go back to their time in West Virginia. So I think that continuity at the position is something they haven't really had. They had 3 O-line coaches and Prize 3.25 seasons. That's not a great ratio of O-line coaching turnover to seasons. So you finally have a little bit of continuity there. And the last time they had some continuity at the position, the coaching of that position was Vance Weiss, who was there for a long time and eventually developed a really good group where they had like a full 2 deep. Like they could go 10 deep and really not lose anything. They had a starting 5 who all went on to the NFL. Some guys transferred out that went on to the NFL. I mean, it was a really impressive job that they did, but that's the O-line. It takes a while to get that built up. And I think you're starting to see that a little bit more in year 2 under Matt Moore.
Okay, I'm not going to lie. This is a crazy question. It was not in the script, but I thought of it on the fly because we've seen it happen. Granted, Indiana just won the national title, unbeknownst to the new Purdue athletic director, but Indiana just did win the national title, so a little bit of a different situation there. But with the court ruling in Colorado, Virginia Tech football is not going to add anybody on this team that was with the program the last couple of years that has now been grandfathered into the 5-for-5. I would assume that is correct.
By my count, Virginia Tech has 103 scholarship players, but they've got like 15 to 20 walk-ons on the team right now, which means to get down to the 105-man limit by game week, they have to cut guys. So I just,
who would there even be?
Right. Yeah.
They would. Who from last year's team is like such a difference maker? Right. They were 3-9 last year.
Yeah.
Who's making the difference? That Purdue athletic director, right?
Yeah.
Making a big statement. It is ridiculous that he said that about Indiana, but Kurt Cignetti was sort of ridiculous when he came out. He just started throwing bombs at Michigan and Ohio State right away. It's like, I even made a comment to it. Mike Nislek tweeted about it, and responded with it's it's like Bane and then the like green screen like small guy like standing in front of him. And I left the tweet up because it's like a testament to being completely wrong about something, and like I want that to stand the test of time of just how bad that making fun of Cignetti was in that situation. But it's sort of the same thing.
Yeah,
like people are like, oh, look at this clown making these statements. That's what we said about Cignetti at the time too.
There's a fine line between confidence and arrogance.
Yeah, for him to point, I don't know. When you're like, if you want to go win a national, or if you don't want to win a championship, go to Indiana when they literally just won.
Yeah,
the
I don't know if I would have
he
done
could
it
phrased
7 months after.
He goes,
that.
if you want to be good, go come here. If you want to not, like, yeah, he could have phrased it a different way than saying something that was just completely wrong on its face that we all know it was wrong.
And they beat Purdue like 66-3 last year.
And
too.
Cignetti is a coach that hears that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And he's
Oh,
not
yeah.
going to say much about it, but he's going to put a hurting on Purdue this year.
Yeah.
I mean, he was going to do it anyway, but I think
Yeah.
he might keep the
motivation.
starters in a little bit longer now.
Poor Vance Weiss and James Shebest.
That's right.
Oh yeah, one of them got let go,
I think
right?
Vice
Or did
got
they?
let go.
Oh, really?
I think so. I think Shebest is still there.
Oh.
Okay.
Now that's
I wanna
Barry
say.
Odom's staff, right?
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm. One more thing about the running backs, because we haven't talked about that a whole heck of a lot, but how do you see the running back room shaking out as a whole? Marcellus Hawkins, Jeffrey Overton will be the headliners, but how do you guys see the running back room as a whole shaking out over the course of the season?
I mean, I think Bill Davis is a big physical back, might be underrated speed, but obviously at 5'9", 228, why he was brought in. Overton's a really explosive guy. He showed that last year by making the Miami defense look slow on that run. And Hawkins is a combination of both. He's a big guy who was one of the best players in the country in the open field. So I think that's a good group when you've got 3 backs like that have talent and that for the most part are proven at the college level. That's a good problem to have. And Norval McKenzie I really like as a coach. The Georgia Tech running backs were very productive under him. He had a 1,000-yard rusher at Vanderbilt. He had a 1,500-yard rusher at Louisville. I mean, this is a guy whose running backs historically produce at a very high level. And I think he's the Virginia Tech's most intense coach during practice. I really enjoy watching him coach. I think that group's going to be good. I think Messiah Mickens has dropped some of his baby fat. He's lost a little bit of weight, and I think he's in better shape now, is in a better position to contribute. So overall, I feel good about that group. I guess, my only concern is health, because if you look at Marcellus Hawkins, he was injured at the end of last year and during the spring, and was injured in 2 of his 3 years in Division II ball as well. So that's a little bit of an issue. But overall in the room, I like the depth, and I like McKenzie's history of developing good backs. That running back he had at Louisville, Javian Hawkins, was a 1,500-yard rusher as a redshirt freshman. So that proves that he can get production out of a redshirt freshman, which bodes well for Jeffrey Overton, and production out of a guy named Hawkins, which bodes well for Marcellus.
Good point.
So I think we're good to go there.
Yeah, you mentioned Hawkins has the injury history. Overton tore an ACL.
Right.
Missed most of last year. And remarkably came back last year to be as effective as he was. I think Mickens is an interesting one to throw in the mix. I mean, a really highly recruited guy. And again, in the past, you'd just say, "Oh, redshirt him." You don't have to do that now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could get a sense of what he's going to do out there, and he could, steal some carries here and there, and you don't have to worry about keep him under 4 games and make sure you preserve the year. So, an interesting group. I think a potentially deeper group than they've had in recent years, and I think they're going to run the ball. That's what they did last year. That was something. Now they have to add the passing game, but running the ball is something they did last season.
And
Yeah, and I think sorry, David, go ahead.
No, well, I was going to say, when you factor in a guy like, I think when your tight ends are better blockers, but also the biggest question I think continues to be the offensive line is going to improve, but how much? And it's like, even if the offensive line is taking a little bit of a step forward, I think it makes the running game that much more effective. Like, think about how many missed tackles forced guys like Hawkins and Bashal Tutin have had to force over the last couple of years. Like, that's what happens when the offensive line is a little bit weaker. It gets a little bit better, and all of a sudden you're looking at maybe Hawkins looks that much more improved.
Yeah, I mean,
Can you make those tackles missed in the secondary versus on the defensive line?
Right.
Getting to the second level.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the running back is going to be very important this year because when you're running a 2 tight end offense, there's going to be plenty of play action and RPOs built in, which means you need a strong running game to work the passing game off of it. Well, you don't have an option quarterback anymore. So that puts even more pressure on the running backs themselves to produce all the yardage because Ethan Ruckmeyer had negative rushing yards for Penn State. He's not going to go out there and get you 600 or 700 yards like Kyron Jones was able to. His strength is going to be in the passing game. But for that passing game to fully work, the running backs are going to have to be productive. But when you look at these guys and their talent level and their production history in the past, or even in the case of Overton, it's not like he's had a ton of production, but you throw him out there against Miami and he looks good against a team that almost won the national championship. Yeah. You feel good about that group.
Yeah, and I think Franklin's offenses produce good running backs at Penn State too, consistently. Yeah. Like the Penn State running backs were consistently probably the best part of that offense outside of Tyler Warren at tight end.
It's incredible what they did at Penn State the last 4 years. So Penn State kept the same 2 running backs as a 2-man rotation each of the last 4 years, and they both had 1,000-yard seasons. That's honestly a testament to how good Franklin is at retaining players during the transfer portal era.
They recruit guys that everybody thought would be like the savior at other programs that wouldn't even play. Right. Like Devin Ford, remember him? Didn't really do much. Tech wanted him so bad.
His favorite player was Michael Vick, so they got Michael Vick to come up on one of his visits and talk to him, and he still went to Penn State. Nah. And he did nothing.
Yeah, and he was buried on the depth chart. Yeah. He had some other things go on there that didn't help his cause, but just never really hit it big there.
All right, with that, let's step aside one more time and hear from Rich Webb here on the Tech Sideline Podcast.
This episode of the Tech Sideline Podcast is brought to you by Rich Webb, your local provider of top-tier IT managed services. For 30 years, Rich Webb has offered a comprehensive suite of cutting-edge solutions tailored to empower businesses of all sizes in today's digital age. From top-tier network engineering services, ensuring seamless connectivity and security, to our exceptional managed endpoint and cloud services, providing proactive maintenance and strategic optimization, we're dedicated to delivering excellence at every turn. Rich Webb, driving enterprise IT. Visit richwebb.com to learn more. Rich Webb has proudly hosted TechSideline.com for over 2 decades.
And welcome back to episode 495 of the Tech Sideline Podcast. And you kind of teased this when we started the podcast a little bit, is something that stood out about this Virginia Tech team. And, everybody's probably going to be like, well, they're going to win the room when they get off the bus. Well, it looks like that is a little bit true. You look at Virginia Tech's offensive line, they have 21 guys over 300 pounds. Last year, they had 12 guys over 300 pounds. And it seems like the Hokies have made quite a few trips to Texas Roadhouse in Christiansburg, it seems like.
Yeah, well, that's... Sports writers love to ask the food questions. Mm-hmm. Like, where do you like to just gorge on food? There's nothing we like hearing more than that. It's every single year. In the past, I think when Brock Hoffman was here, they had to deal with Mission Barbecue. It's like, all right, but what do you get at Mission Barbecue? Tell us exactly what your order was. So we asked Al Tuner about it. It's like Texas Steakhouse or Texas Roadhouse.
Roadhouse in Christopher, yeah.
Texas Roadhouse is the go-to. And I'm just thinking, what does the Texas Roadhouse staff think when 24 300-pound guys walk through the door at the same time? Al Tuner's like, yeah, they got NIL money now that they spend it on there. Al Tuner's like, no, we're good for business. When we go in there, they're going to sell some stuff. And we asked him what his go-to order was. He's like 20-ounce ribeye, 2 baked potatoes, 2 sweet potatoes, I think it was. And then he limits himself to 4 of the rolls, even though they could probably eat like 100 of those things.
They keep bringing out baskets of rolls to you if you eat them all. Yeah, I love Roadhouse rolls.
Did you know they sell the butter to those rolls now at Target?
Do they? Really?
I actually bought some a couple of days ago. Yeah,
that's dangerous.
That's very dangerous.
Yeah, thanks for that.
But I'm trying to think, is there an all-you-can-eat place around here? So I feel like if the offensive line ever went to an all-you-can-eat place, all right, we're going to put some limits on this, guys. Yeah. We're trying to run a business here.
Country cooking.
Oh yeah, country cooking. Free advertising for country cooking here on the Tech Sideline
and Texas Roadhouse.
I
feel like this isn't fair to our other sponsors. We do need a restaurant.
We don't have any food sponsors.
Well, maybe some food sponsors need to step up.
Maybe we do.
Want this spot.
Interesting. All right. So with that being said, I want to get to one more thing, but some people might want to click off the podcast before we get to that point.
No, they don't. They want to hear about this.
So we'll wait about what's coming up on TechSideline.com. So some news out of Blacksburg, Virginia. That was on, what's today? Friday. That was on Tuesday. The Blacksburg Bombers, after a 3.5-month season, and after starting 1-22 as a program, have won the Blacksburg Rec Softball League title. We had to win. We were essentially, if you're a college baseball fan, had to win the 1-1 game of a regional, and then had to win the 2 games in the championship series. So we had to win 3 straight games in a row on Tuesday night. So we played the first game at 6 o'clock. We won the whole thing at like 9:15.
Yeah, like the Red Sox in 2004.
Carter's it was a 3-run 7th inning rally in the first game.
Yes.
Capped off by a sliding catch in left field by our host Carter Hill here. Not like he came in running in, slides, and like holds it aloft like for everybody presenting it. It was a great catch. And then I think the last 2 games we really dominated.
Oh, yeah.
The first one, our defense was outstanding.
I heard there's a regular Brooks Robinson over there at third base.
Not quite.
Yes, he had a great play.
He had a nice spin move.
I had some good plays at third. But I think our defense as a whole was what won it. We won 5-2 in the next game, and then the Bats woke up in the last
13-6
game. The defense throughout carried us to that championship. So defense wins championships.
And speaking of restaurants having a boon, how about PKs? I heard Tuesday night PKs was pretty lively.
It was fun, yeah.
There was like barely anybody else there, but
I really wanted to see like a post game celebration,
cigars,
like with a cigar and the goggles and a champagne bottle and the dancing. Needed all that.
It was a work night.
No, were y'all here on Wednesday? I was here on Wednesday. I wouldn't have been if I'd been celebrating with y'all.
Yeah, it was great. I'm so happy for Nick and his dad, and also Nick's grandparents. They've all put so much into this team. And, at one point we were the Bad News Bears pretty much. We were not very good when we started and not even very good a couple years ago.
This is going to be the Hokies, man. From 3-9 to
the Bad News Bears, but then we added like 3 Kelly Leaks and we became much better. The NIL really improved this year. We added some talent. Their shortstop, Mason.
Shout out Mason.
Well, the first game I was playing shortstop because I had done it last year, but I'm like old, so I can't play that position anymore. And then I'm looking over at third base, and we've got Captain America sitting over there at third base, and I'm like, you're the shortstop from now on. You're playing there, and it put me in a better spot because I have a decent glove, but I can't move. So third base is perfect for me. So if somebody hits it hard at me, maybe I can catch it, but I'm not going to move around to get it at third base. And then Mason is how many home runs did he have this year, Nick?
He had over 10.
He had a bunch of home runs.
But he hit for the cycle like 3 or 4 times.
Bunch of home runs, and he's really good at shortstop. I think that was a key move for our improvement this year.
But the thing is, it used to be we were a team with just a handful of people who live here full time, mostly college students.
Just our college boys.
And then we've progressed, it is now almost everyone who lives here full time with a handful of college students. And we've added people like Jared McCullen, who's assistant coach on the women's basketball team.
Shout out to him. He's
and Jared plays
players.
in center field and gets just about everything. Plays out there with Nick and Amanda Wright and Ryan Brem. Ryan's played for us for a really long time, but they are Nick's dad's coworkers at Radford High School. Yeah. So we have continued to tweak and add, and Braden Shank played for us this year. Jack Brizendine.
But
Evan
really,
Hughes.
it's about establishing the culture first and making sure that people come in, they don't upset that culture.
You're right.
Hey,
you're
right. Chris, we on Tuesday night we embodied grit.
Grit. Oh man, I've still got a Virginia Tech grit shirt.
Did you guys see David Teal's tweet after the game?
What did he say?
He quote tweeted the Blacksburg Bombers on Twitter, and let's pull that bad boy up. He said, "This looks, feels, and smells like a big time program."
Yeah, it really does.
That's the funny thing is you can tell it's like culture and everybody togetherness, but like the reason we got some really good players. That really pushed us over the top. It's like,
do you have Chico
talent acquisition might still be the key.
Do you have Chico's Bell Bonds logos?
We should. We don't really have a title sponsor on our team.
Yeah.
The team we were playing in the championship had like jerseys and like shirts.
They did,
and stuff.
Yeah.
They sold jersey patches.
Here's the thing though. The team we lost to in the championship of the championship of the losers bracket. That team we beat, they were the 1 seed, and we lost to them earlier this year. The team we played, the team we played in the title game.
Twice.
The team we played in the title game, we had played them 3 times already. We beat them once, we lost to them twice, and this is after like this was a transformational year for us because when I tell you at the end of last season, we gave up in our final playoff game of the year. We gave up 12 or 13 runs in the first inning, and we won the
demoralizing.
It's tough for the morale.
On Tuesday alone. Like, that was the best defense I have seen us play, and we did it for 21 innings over 3 hours, and it was like the best combination we've played over 3 or 4 years, and it all came to light at the right time. I told Evan Hughes, I said, I covered Virginia Tech men's basketball winning an ACC championship. We were obviously there when Virginia Tech women's basketball went to the Final Four. I said, Evan, to do this as players, it's like, this might be more special than this. It's really cool.
I can't wait for the documentary.
And let me tell you, I was sore.
I'm still sore.
Me too. I can't believe it. Yeah, I haven't been sore the whole year, but I guess when you play 3 straight games,
you guys are young. You can handle it.
We can.
I am sore, but I'm so happy for Nick. Nick and his dad and his grandparents. They put so much blood, sweat, and tears into this. And Nick's, I tell you, man, Mr. Brown, our pitcher. He was lights out all Tuesday night. He was dialed in, especially when and this is very shameful. In the first game, the other team didn't want to swing. It's slow pitch softball, and
they took full advantage of the rule that if you walk a guy to get to a girl, then the girl also walks. And then they hit 2 first inning home runs. We were down 5-0 in the first inning.
Yeah,
going, this is gonna be a short day. Not so fast, my friends.
Nope.
Not so fast.
Nope.
Yeah, but Mr. Brown was dialed in, and very happy for him. Nick, anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, it was really funny because we've got such a, I guess, pop famous team. Like I think combined Twitter followers on our team is probably over 200,000 at least. And so we have so many people every week come up to us that we play against. Oh, you're David Cunningham. Oh, you're Evan Hughes. Oh, you're Andy Bitter.
Life in the spotlight is so tough.
It's pretty cool. And so did want to give a shout out to a couple of people that are probably watching this podcast that we played in the final. They were really nice. The team that we beat to get to the final, they weren't that nice, but it's okay.
Yeah.
We had fun, and as I described it, that first win was probably the most satisfying win in any competition of anything I've ever had in my entire life.
Why was that the case?
Come from behind in the top of the 7th. We score 3 runs.
Some chirping.
To take the lead back. They don't want to swing at anything. And then they literally went down 1-2-3 in that final inning, and Carter Hill sliding grab for the win to ice it. I mean,
they were a big home run team, and you're only allowed 2 home runs. So
right.
I think once they used up those home runs in the first inning, they're sort of like, what do we do?
Andy's like, we have them right where we want them. We're good to go.
Well, now the challenge, guys,
strategy,
is you can't rest on your laurels. You got to work even harder this offseason because they're going to be gunning for you next year.
Well, if the money's right, then hopefully this works.
Andy's hitting free agency. Oh, there's going to be a lockout this offseason.
We may not play next
year.
The
disease of me here. Everybody wants more the next year. So it's definitely going to go to our heads. I mean, Jesus, we've just talked to it for 10 minutes on the podcast.
About it, yeah.
This is why you never let sports writers win anything kind of sporting related.
Now, to win an elimination game and to beat the same team twice to win the whole thing was definitely a night to remember. I couldn't believe it. I
mean, we've come such a long way, and like the team we gave up 13 runs to in the final game of the season last year. We played them 2 or 3 times this year and swept, including beating them by like 12 runs this year. Obviously helps when you upgrade your talent, but I also think the players who have played, like me, Carter, like I didn't play baseball or softball growing up. So like I feel like I have gotten better as a player. I think those who have been with us for a long time have gotten better, and we've acquired the right talent in the transfer portal.
This is a conversation we're going to be having about Virginia Tech football a year or 2 from now. We retain the right players, and we've filled in with the right transfers. and we went from 3-9 to
Right quarter
whatever.
pieces.
See,
1 and
it's like
22 to championship.
Last year, the player, there were odds, there were clicks on the team. You do all the same things that all these teams do in hindsight. It's like this year is different, and it was.
That is why you listen to the Tech Sideline podcast, to connect the Blacksburg Bombers to Virginia Tech football.
At
There's
least
your
we
A+.
saved this for the end instead of at the top.
Yeah,
Where they were
yeah.
like, get to the dang
There are
football.
so-
I
I'm
wanna
sure
hear
there are
this.
some people who skipped
They
it.
could turn it off.
At this point, yeah.
They're
you're good.
missing out.
The one thing, though, is what is coming up on TechSideline.com. I think it is going to be a busy-ish next week and a half and busy-ish next month and a
Yeah,
half.
it's media day on
Q&A
Sunday.
today, media day on Sunday, so there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out of that. I'm continuing with positional previews. I started with quarterbacks earlier this week, yesterday, and move on to other positions next week. So, man, we are full in the preseason now.
We are into the preseason grind, Carter. Practice, position previews. I'm interested to see what we get from Sunday, because media day. So we'll talk to Franklin, Pry, Howell, all the coaches, all the players, except for the freshmen. So yeah,
Nice.
a lot of good stuff. We're a
Head
couple
on a
weeks
swivel.
away.
When news happens, we'll write it.
Nice.
So.
Yep.
Nick, what about you?
Got to unmute myself. We have 3 videos next week. Monday, we'll have Talking with Teal in person.
Oh, yeah.
Fired up for that. Tuesday, we'll have a podcast, This Crew, talking about Media Day. And then Wednesday, good old Bud Foster, come on down. Probably talk a little preseason football as well. And I don't know what you guys have planned for that,
I have
Chris.
no idea either. That's Will
But-
always plans that, and I just show up.
This is the
Probably
this is
some
like-
reminiscing.
Probably.
guess.
It's a good guess.
Some reminiscent, yeah.
This is the final calm week before the storm, and then it really ramps up. And holy cow, if you like our audio video stuff, you're going to be very, very, very happy this football season. I can promise you that.
When in doubt with Bud, just remember some dudes.
Yeah.
That's a good pod right
Yeah.
there. Remembering dudes.
Yep.
And
We-
he
and
can, he
we'd
can
also-
run through them.
We'd also be remiss if we didn't talk about the new site, because
We'll roll it out.
Will obviously is
a
not
lot of work
here.
by Will. To
I
put
haven't
that
seen
in.
Will in like 2 weeks because he's just probably in his basement or something like
In
that.
his
just
bunker.
In his bunker, just plugging
Yeah,
away.
we're going through a transition on our website right now, and it seems like it's going pretty smoothly. There are still some a bunch of bugs that
New
we're
stuff
finding
pops
and
up every
sorting out.
day.
It's
yeah,
been way smoother than you could have imagined. We have an AI agent that
yeah,
you can say, fix this, and then it fixes it immediately. Like Skynet is truly taken over.
yeah. But Will's been very hands on with that, and I think it's running pretty fast for the most part, and I think people will find this really interesting. You can customize what message board layout you'd like. So it's like a one size fits all thing. So if you want a V bulletin layout, you want a classic style, like you can lay it out how you like it. And yeah, it's been working pretty well so far, but Will has been continuing to tinker since I think it was last week we finally rolled it out.
Yep.
Nice. All right, that'll do it. Episode 495 of the Tech Sideline podcast. So, for Chris Coleman, David Cunningham, Andy Bitter, Nick Brown, I'm Carter Hill saying so long once again from episode 495 of the Tech Sideline podcast. Have a great weekend ahead, and we will talk to you next week.